A is for activist. A is for activist, advocate, abolitionist, ally, actively answering a call to action. Are you an activist? Welcome to our show today. We're going to be focusing on empowering your child to have their voice heard and listened to. If this is something that you are interested in, stay tuned because we are going to, as we get started, I would love for you to share something that you love to do with your child. I think it's great when we get in touch with those positive things. Sometimes school and meetings can get in the way of us being positive. So let's get your voice in the room. What do you love doing with your child? Put that in the chat as we get started. And I'm going to look at your comments here. So, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And I want to give you a bonus tip before we get started. One of the most important things that you'll learn today is to connect your child's strengths to their voice. And you might be wondering, I don't know, Charmaine, what does this mean? When your kids recognize what they're good at, it becomes a powerful way for them to express themselves. For example, let me go back here. If your child loves writing, tap into that strength and have that be a way that your child's voice is heard through their writing. If your child loves to draw and has that artistic flair, use that strength for their voice to be heard. Their voice could be heard through their art. While we are going through today, I hope that you will remember to tap into your child's strengths and let that be how their voice is heard. So today we are talking about from the classroom to the boardroom. Now imagine this, you're at an IEP meeting and the teachers, the administrators are all making decisions about your child's education. And you're there advocating fiercely, but where's your child? Is your child missing from that IEP meeting? Because their life, their future is on the table. But too often, their voice isn't in the room. So it's time for our kids to stop being bystanders to a system that often overlooks them. And today we're going to be talking about how your child's voice matters in leadership spaces and all kinds of spaces, and how self-advocacy can be such a strong skill for them. Not just learning self-advocacy at school, but using those skills in the community when they go to the doctor's office. Think about all the different situations where your child's life brings them. Is their voice heard when you take them to their private speech lesson? Think about all the instances where your child could be involved more, could have their voice heard more, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's look here. And I wanted to give you some actual real examples of this is happening to students as we speak, right? I don't know how many, and I don't know, is this picture, for some reason this picture isn't showing up. It's a picture of Otto Lana. Where is his picture? Shoot. If Otto Lana, he is an entrepreneur that's also a typist, and I'll put his website in and I don't know why his picture isn't showing. Shoot. Anyway, so Otto Lana is a wonderful entrepreneur, and I would love for you to know more about him. So I will give you his website. It's called Otto Mottos. And another example of how it's already happening for students, because there are a lot of different community meetings and parents are encouraged to bring their children. So that might be something that your child could be involved in. Look at what's happening in your community. Now, I had also mentioned your child can use advocacy skills when they're at the doctor's office. There might be sometimes at the school district level where your child could be involved in some school district committees and actually have their voice heard. So this is not going to be for you if you're saying, ain't got no time. Nobody's got time for that. Because I want to show you today that there are some easy ways, even when your child is very young, for them to be involved. And I totally get it if it's like, Charmaine, this is another thing. I really don't want to do it. And that's okay. Because we all have different times where different things work best for us, right? So let's look here. One of the things that we need to make sure that we're aware of are these limiting beliefs that we have about what people with disabilities, what disabled people are actually capable of doing. So we need to confront these limiting beliefs that our children aren't capable of taking leadership roles, or they're not capable of advocating for themselves. And I understand why you might feel this way because, and I was going to come over here, because I think a lot of us have been told and that, oh, your child is too young. Yeah, they're not ready to go to an IEP meeting. Or you've been told your child really doesn't have the skills to advocate. So I'd like you to think of what are some limiting beliefs that you've encountered in your community or your school, and think about how those limiting beliefs really affect the opportunities that your child has. Let me ask you, how do you know students with disabilities can't be leaders? Have you ever seen or heard about a disabled student actively being involved in their IEP meeting and leading their IEP meeting? Because once you see that, once that has happened somewhere, then that tells us that belief no longer holds. And I think that you are also, right, in agreement that your child has lots of leadership skills. So if there's things that your child's doing now to show that leadership, let us know. It could be at school, it could be in a club they belong to, it could be at church. Where are some places that you already see that little leadership potential kind of peeking out, and you know that your child just has so much to share with others? So Katie, hey there. Katie says one of the things that she loves doing with her child is going for walks in amusement parks. So thanks, Katie. And Katie, do you have an example of how your child uses their voice and how they are speaking up for what's important to them? Because I wonder what will happen if people continue to hold on to this limiting belief. And it might not just be you that's holding on to a limiting belief about your child, but look at the people that your child is surrounded with. If we assume that students with disabilities can't be leaders, we're not only underestimating them, but we're really taking away those opportunities for them to grow and be a person that's respected and honored for who they are. So these limiting beliefs that we have, when we cling to these, this is what blocks our children from really achieving and doing what they can. So, if you are new to the show, hello. Or if you're a returning audience member, welcome. And if you're watching live or in the replay, sometimes I get asked questions, Charmaine, like, how did you come to know all this? And like many of you, I wear a lot of hats. Probably my most important hat as a parent. We have 3 kids, and Dylan, our youngest, has Down syndrome. I've learned a tremendous amount from him. I was a special ed teacher for 15 years, a general ed teacher for 15 years. I've been speaking, an adjunct and university instructor, an advocate, an author. All of those life experiences have helped me be in the place that I'm in today. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is 3 different common problems I see today. And you might recognize, why are these pictures not showing up? I am so bummed. I can't believe it. Shoot. This picture that you don't see, what's the deal, is our kids being left out. And what it was, it's a picture of a school choir concert, and all the students are standing on the risers, and the choir director's conducting it. And way off to the side is a student in a wheelchair. And they are like hardly in the picture, right? So when we exclude our children, we know that does something for their own self concept. And it also sends us a strong message to their classmates that they don't belong. This is one of the common problems that I see in our schools. Now, let's see, this one came out. Our second common problem is ableism. When your school doesn't see your child as a competent learner or a potential leader, and they make judgments, and it's based on stereotypes, it's based on these limiting beliefs too, right? So ableism is one of those huge problems that's embedded in so many different systems, including our education system. And the third common problem that I see is when your child is ignored and their insights, their thoughts, their ideas are ignored. And when systems like our education system does not hear from students, their decisions are flawed because student voices aren't there. And I don't know if I showed this. Ableism was our second problem. Your child's insights being ignored. So I want you to think of these 3 examples. Oh, and here's our picture. Do you find, and you can type more than one in, but which problem can you most relate to? Is your child left out at school? Then you can type a number 1. Oh, it's not showing up here. If ableism at your school is the number 1 problem that you see, type a number 2. Or if your child is ignored and their insights aren't taken as credible thoughts, then write 3 in the chat. So 1, 2, 3. Hey, Anne Marie. So, yes, which one can you relate to? Or maybe all 3 of them you relate to, right? So you might be saying, Charmaine, what do I do about this? What do I do? What do I do? And actually, sometimes what we need to do is stop doing what doesn't work first. So these are some of the mistakes that we want to stop making. Not involving your child in the decision making process. That's something that we for sure want to make sure does not happen, because what happens if we keep making this mistake, if we keep, as parents, as we are like the gatekeepers and are not allowing our kids to have their voice heard. So if we keep making that mistake, those opportunities for your child are like going by the wayside. So we want to make sure that we actually try to amplify their voices, right? Another mistake is that parents are waiting for your child to be ready. And when you look at all the things and all the times as parents and advocates, when we speak up for our kids and say, our child has the right to be included in general ed, and we get pushback from teachers and administrators and say, oh, your child's really not ready yet. He needs to develop some other skills first. I say, as a parent, a lot of times I hear parents saying that their child is not ready to go to an IEP meeting and be there in person, or your child is not ready to be at a school board meeting, or your child's not ready to serve on a district committee or meet their state or national legislators. Those mistakes are what is continuing to limit your child in their opportunities. Let's not do that anymore, right? Assuming that someone else will teach your child advocacy skills, like teachers or daycare providers. That is another mistake, because we know as parents we have a exceptional role to play in our child's life, and we want to make sure that we instill these beliefs in our children. What happens if you continue making this mistake? Your child, their opportunities to be a leader, to develop more independence, to develop more interdependence, all of that gets taken away. So let's shift. And we're going to go to action steps that we could start doing today. And step one is all about starting with small, manageable actions. These everyday choices can help build your child's confidence and their ability to self advocate, which we love, right? How do we do this? And why does this matter? We know that building confidence with early success makes a huge difference. The more success our child has with things, the more their confidence continues to develop. And it also prepares them for more larger challenges as they grow. So that's important. Also, that whole idea of giving them success with small ways to share their voice prepares them for those bigger challenges. And it also shows that their voice does have impact. Now, the one thing that we also want to remember is, if we skip step one and we don't start small and build on successes, that usually we'll see little progress. So, what can we do? One of the things to be important is to give them choices throughout the day, no matter how young they are, right? They can have a choice of what kind of juice they drink. They can have a choice if they want it in a cup or a glass. Throughout the day, at home and at school, we want to give children lots of choices. And then what else can we do? is to ask for their input on family plans. So if you are planning some, like a family vacation or some kind of family outing, having your child contribute to what time do we want to go? Do we want to bring a picnic lunch? Do we want to buy something? Do we want to eat lunch before we go? So asking your child for what their ideas are is a small action step that you can take, and your child has that energy and feels like, yes, my voice does matter. Or something simple like at night, like picking a TV show or a game that you can all do as a family. Those are those small steps that you can do. And I look at this as taking baby steps, right? Each step helps your child gain confidence and prepares them for those bigger decisions that are coming in the future. Anne Marie, what should we do? Make snarky comments on Facebook. Yes. And Kathy, thank you for being here. Kathy was saying 2 and 3. Katie was saying 2. Yeah. Um, Anne Marie says, yesterday the kids had indoor recess. All of the groups wanted Amanda to join their group. Great example of belonging. Yes. And unless your child is in that general ed class, they don't get those opportunities, right? Thank you for sharing that, Emery. Those are the stories that we want, right? Number 1 is to take those small baby steps. Number 2 is advocating together with your child. And this reminds me of a reading professor that I had when I was taking my master's classes. And for reading instruction, or for other kinds of instruction too, one of the techniques or strategies is for you to first do it with your child. And then the next is 2. So your child does it. No, I've got it mixed up. 2 with by. So first, you model it for your child. Second, you do it with your child, the advocacy activity. And then the third level is they can start advocating by themselves. The 3 things to remember are 2, with, and by. Okay. So 2, you model the advocacy. With, you do it with your child, and then they can start doing it on their own. So these are the important things that we want to make sure that all of our children get a chance to do. So if we look at why does this matter, it teaches them advocacy by example. And I need to show when I come back here. And that's a powerful way for them to learn self-advocacy skills. And it also builds their confidence when they are speaking up, when they've had positive experiences, then they're more confident for the next time. And also, it brings you closer to your child and helps them know that you are supporting them. And so that is really important. Now, if you skip this step, your child might feel unheard or invisible. If you skip this step, you have missed chances for your child to develop not only independence, but interdependence also. And we want to, if you skip this step of advocating together, most likely your child is going to grow up relying on others to speak for them. And this is not a pattern that we want our kids to have. And there's a sequence of things depending on the age of your child. But even in elementary school, even in preschool, your child can be involved in their meetings. And it's going to look different according to your child and according to their age. But I really encourage you to have them come, because we don't want them to grow up and think that the adults around me, they're the ones that really decide what happens. And it really doesn't matter what I say. That's not what we want our kids doing, right? So, what is something that we do want to happen? And again, what is it with my pictures? I'm bummed because this is a great picture. I'll have to just describe it to you. Of Dylan was when he was in high school, and he had a path, a person centered planning meeting. And Dylan got to invite friends to come to that planning session. And I have to figure out another way to share it. I'm not sure why it's not sharing. Um, and one of the things that I discovered is in fifth grade, we had the first person centered planning session for Dylan, and it was a MAPS, which is a lot of times used with younger kids. But what was so nice is it was in the spring of fifth grade, and we wanted a way to help his middle school team get to know Dylan before sixth grade rolled around. And so what we did is we had Dylan invite classmates, and he got to decide who was on the invite list. And what was so amazing and just such a powerful time was not only for Dylan to be speaking up and saying what he wanted for his life, but all the friends that he had invited to the meeting and their tips and strategies and what they were saying about Dylan. And it was just such a different positive environment and tone for the meeting. And I thought, you know what? We could be having Dylan's friends come to other IEP meetings. His brother and sister could come to IEP meetings. And so we started doing that. And we noticed that really shifted the tone of meetings, not only having Dylan there, but either his brother or sister or and friends. So I encourage you to look at who could your child invite to come to their next IEP meeting. Now, we had talked about that we need to make sure. Here's another picture. Is it going to show up? Look at all these pictures. None of them are showing up. I'm bummed. Okay, here's another description. So, another thing that I wanted to share was that there are different ways for your child's voice to be heard. So, yes, coming to an IEP meeting can be a basic way to do that. But then look, what are some other ways? I think it's probably nationwide where there's like a national giving day, and different organizations, like usually nonprofits, will tell people about their agency, their organization, and encourage people to donate. Well, Dylan was a board member on our local Treasure Valley Down Syndrome Association. And Dylan loves to be center stage. And so Dylan had volunteered to be one of those sign holders on the street corner. However, it was really cool because there was also, a booth there where people could come and find out about the organization. So maybe your child wants to do something that's just more physical and it doesn't require them speaking into a microphone. So be creative and think of other ways that kids can do things. Okay, I am, cross your fingers. Will this picture show up? No. Jeez, I can't believe this. Okay, so here's a verbal description. So the tip is to make sure that we support our kids with what they want to do. And one of the things that Dylan wanted to do in college was to take a class called The History of Rock and Roll Music. And each student had to do research on a rock and roll artist, musician, and present some kind of presentation to the college class. So Dylan has always loved Elvis Presley. So luckily, the local costume shop had an Elvis Presley costume. So now you have to picture Dylan in this white jumpsuit with the red fringe, and Dylan with this black Elvis Presley wig and sunglasses. And Dylan researched Elvis Presley. He did a PowerPoint for his college class. And of course, to make it more exciting, Dylan came dressed as Elvis Presley. So, those little things, like when your kids get excited about things and they want to do something, show them that you're there to support them. And yeah, so that's great. Dylan did this Elvis Presley presentation. What does that have to do with leadership? But you think about it, like, one, how many kids with Down syndrome are at college? And luckily, that's more now than in 2007 when Dylan started college. But two, just think of the classmates in that college class and what they saw about Dylan, and that he could be engaging, that he knew how to look facts up and get information, that he knew how to do a PowerPoint. So, all of those competencies that other college students saw with Dylan, that makes a huge impact on them. So, what are some ways that your child can have that impact? And Anne says, yeah, oh, that's when the one that we looked at. Yeah, as far as the indoor recess and people asking her to, join their group. All of that happens when we have those relationships, right? Let's continue on here. I don't know why. And then what I look at also is, as parents, we need to be handing that baton off to our child, right? When they're young, we're the ones that are speaking up the most for them. And as we're running alongside them and supporting them, there comes a time that we do need to pass that baton, and our child needs to start taking more of a role in their life and speaking up for what's important for them. So, the third thing that you can do is build up those leadership skills. And again, this doesn't have to just happen in the school. It can be in the community. It can, be in the state house. There's lots of ways that we can build. So, why does this matter? Because when we're building leadership skills with our child, we're actually also helping them build decision making skills, which, of course, right, they're going to use all throughout their life. When our child becomes more involved with leadership opportunities, they also learn how to problem solve, which you talk about life skills, decision making, problem solving. Those are huge life skills, right? And it boosts their confidence. Think about yourself when you speak up at an IEP meeting and are sharing things, and you see some positive outcomes from that. That builds your confidence, right? It does that for your child too. And those are the opportunities that we want to make sure that your child has. So, there are consequences if we skip this step. And the biggest consequence of not building our kids' leadership skills is that we really stunt their growth. We stunt that growth that they're going to need in their future. So, what can we do? We had talked about this. Planning family events, supporting them for what they choose to do. It might be choosing to join a school club or an activity. This is Dylan when he was in 6th grade. Doesn't he look so little? And Dylan was in band. And there's a whole nother story to that, but he was a percussionist in band. And that was something that was important to him. And so we wanted to support him for that too. And then the other thing that I think is very possible is that we want them to share those insights, those feelings, what works, what doesn't work for them in different places. And I think the first place that we can often start is by going to IEP meetings. And one of the things that's important is that we have those subtle ways of keeping the focus on our child at the meeting and not the adult egos. When Dylan had his first IEP meeting when he was 3, we had it at our house. And it was like, yes, I wanted Dylan to be at the meeting. I knew if we were in a conference room at school, that wouldn't be too exciting for him. So we invited the IEP, the school members of the team, to come to our house after school for an IEP meeting. Dylan was there. He was playing with his dogs. He was reading books. He was crawling around. And what I loved is that everybody got to see Dylan as another 3-year-old kid that loved rolling on his dogs and doing all kinds of funny things. And I think that really sets the tone of this is the important person that we're talking about, and this person, we want them to be in the room. And even though at age 3, Dylan wasn't able to say, these are my goals, this is what I like, it's through his actions, through him being there at the meeting, that helped everyone else get a better look and an understanding of who Dylan really is. And then we had another series of meetings. I remember when he was in kindergarten, we had the IEP meeting in the kindergarten classroom. And I often say there's no other way to equal power at an IEP meeting than everybody sitting in a kindergarten sized chair, right? So again, here Dylan was in the kindergarten class, his own classroom, right? He knew, was familiar with everything. So while we're sitting at a table in the kindergarten room for the IEP meeting, Dylan was going to the different centers and exploring things. And every once in a while, we would say, Dylan, tell us who your friend is in kindergarten, or Dylan, tell us what you did at art today. So just every once in a while, we would get his voice in the room. And that was like our step one of doing those baby steps. So I encourage you to think and yes, let us know. When I think today we're focused a lot on IEP meetings, but there's so many ways that your child's voice can be heard. So give us some examples of what has worked well with you. And I like to think of that analogy of planting the seeds, planting a tree. And to me, leadership is like planting a tree because it requires that nurturing, but over time it goes stronger. And that's what we want for your child. So, these are some of the top things that we have shared today. I'm just going to quickly do a recap here. And then, so the limiting beliefs that children with disabilities, disabled students are not able to rise to the occasion of being a leader, or they can't advocate for themselves. That's the limiting belief we want to give up, and we want the other people in our lives to give that up. We talked about children being left out, the ableism in our schools, and we also talked about the problem of our child being like disregarded and their insights and their thoughts not taken seriously. So the mistakes are not involving your child in the decision-making process, waiting for your child to be ready, assuming that somebody else is going to teach these self-advocacy skills. And what we also noticed was there's 3 things that you can start doing now as a parent. And first is just start small and build on those successes. Find opportunities for you and your child to be advocating. Again, this doesn't have to be just in the school setting. And think and really put intention into how can we build some more leadership skills for my child. I would love for you to type in the comments, what is an aha moment you had from our workshop today? Hey, Lissa. Lissa is in Idaho. I know. Too bad those other cute pictures of Dylan didn't show up. I have to figure that out. And reminds us that yes, presumed competence works. It works, it works. The other thing I wanted to share was that today we talked mainly about why it's important for our kids to develop leadership skills and have their voices heard. And we talked about what, we gave some different examples. Tonight in our Connecting for Change group, so if you're a member of our parent group, tonight we're going to be talking about that. How do we do these things? These are great ideas, Charmaine, but what do I actually do? So if you're interested in joining our parent group Connecting for Change, let me know in the comments and I can give you the link and give you more information. Hey, Katie from Oklahoma. Katie says, my son is 10 and I never thought about him coming to our IEP meeting. Genius. Yeah. And the other thing I can do, let me show you. If you don't get my weekly newsletter, this next week, I'll put in an article that I wrote about Dylan coming to his IEP meetings. And I think you'll find it really interesting. But yeah, and like I said, we started at age 3, Dylan going to his meetings. And there were times at age 3 that we had some conflict in our meetings. So there were times that Dylan didn't come to a meeting when I knew it was going to be really filled with conflict. However, yeah, he just kept coming. And then, like I said, it really didn't dawn on me until 5th grade. It was like, shoot, we could have his friends come because their classmates know so much about them. Yeah, if you don't get my weekly newsletter, sign up at iep.today/weekly, add tips. And let me go back to comments here. Carmen, another friend from Oklahoma, she said, my son's older sister, how cool, has been asking to come to IEP meetings with me for her brother. She is 13. Exactly. Yes. And when we had like that 5th grade person-centered planning meeting, we had it during the school day. So we did ask parents to give permission for their kids to miss, like an hour or so of their school day to be at the meeting. But all the parents were fine with it. They knew Dylan too, and they knew how cool that would be for their kids. Yeah, definitely have his sister come. I know when Dylan was auditing classes at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs, we had another person-centered planning meeting when he was just a freshman at college. And his sister was away and couldn't be there. So what we did is we just had her call in. This was before we did a lot of virtual meetings. And just on the phone, Nicole was able to give insights and input into that planning process. So I'm so excited, Carmen, that she wants to come. I think that's excellent. And it would be so fun. I want to hear. Kate, yes, I'm interested in the group tonight. Okay, I'll give you, so I think I can post a comment. So it goes to is it going to work? IEP.today/checkout. And you can check out our group. Like I said, tonight what we'll be doing is going more into the actual hows. So this is a great idea, but how do I actually get it logistically figured out? And besides the hows of inviting your child or brothers and sisters or friends to the meeting, That is one example that we're going to share tonight, but we're also going to be talking about what it looks like for your child to go to a school board meeting with you. And you might be doing those baby steps where they just watch you stand up at the school board meeting and give your 3-minute speech. And then maybe the next time your child stands beside you as you're addressing the school board and your child adds something to your statement, your conversation. So there's different things that we'll be talking about tonight that will give you those specific hows. So thank you so much for being here. I want to make sure that we can stay connected. You can go to iep.today/Charmaine and see my social media logins or places that I'm at. So we have a Giphy. Let's see if the Giphy shows. I haven't had luck with my slides. It shows. Any other questions that you have? We're here to answer your questions. And if not, I want to wish you a wonderful day. Know that your child's voice matters. Even if they're 3 years old, your child matters. And we want the school, we want the broader community where you live to see your child as that competent person that does have an opinion on things, that can share what they are thinking. And as we leave today, I want to make sure that you also understand that speaking and sharing your child's voice doesn't mean verbal speech, right? We talked about Otto Lana earlier and that he's a typer, and that's how he is expressing himself. So don't think, oh, no, I don't think my child could do that. We tonight in our parent group are going to be thinking of what are some creative ways besides verbally speaking at an IEP meeting or verbally speaking at a school board meeting. What are other ways that your child's voice can be heard? So I am Charmaine Tanner. I'm passionate about supporting parents so your child gets the education that they deserve. I want your child to be safe, happy, and learning every day beside their classmates. So until the next time, thank you for your advocacy. And I wanted to share something else from our A is for Activist book. So if you weren't here in the beginning, let me share this. It says A is for activist, advocate, abolitionist, ally, actively answering a call to action. Are you an activist? And another page I wanted to show you as we close out is G is for grassroots. Sprouting from below, sharing nutrients, and the waters flow. Below the surface, we're all connected. Stronger together, we grow. So, thank you for being here and helping me grow. And thank you for helping your child grow. Take care. And we have some outro music. Maybe.